The murder of Betty Shanks has haunted Brisbane for decades. After 72 years, it still remains unsolved. Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast, the podcast where we delve into some of the world's most perplexing mysteries, unsolved crimes, and haunting cold cases. The murder of Betty Shanks has cast a haunting shadow over Brisbane for more than 7 decades. Even after 72 years, her tragic death remains an unsolved mystery, chilling those who hear her story. It was a mild spring evening on September 19th, 1952, when 2 piercing screams shattered the quiet of Brisbane's inner north suburb of Grange. An off-duty police officer, Constable Alex Stewart, along with other residents, heard the cries but dismissed them as the antics of teenagers. No one ventured into the dark to investigate. By sunrise, those screams would become the prelude to one of Queensland's most infamous unsolved murders. While on his morning rounds, Constable Stewart stumbled upon a horrifying scene just meters from his own home. The battered body of 22-year-old Betty Shanks lay in a neighbor's garden, her blood-stained tram ticket still clutched in her hand. A city forever changed. Betty Shanks was a bright and ambitious public servant and psychology student, walking home from a night lecture. She was attacked, brutally beaten, and strangled mere meters from her front door. Her murder shattered Brisbane's reputation as a big country town, untouched by violent crime, and launched the largest police investigation in the state's history. In the weeks and months that followed, detectives chased every lead, questioning thousands and scouring the area for clues. Yet despite an exhaustive search and widespread speculation, her killer was never found. The woman behind the tragedy. Betty Shanks was much more than a murder victim. She was a vivacious and kind-hearted young woman, devoted to her family and driven in her career. Living with her parents and younger brother in Grange, she recently celebrated a life-changing win in the Golden Casket Lottery. The prize allowed her to pay off her family's mortgage, repaint their home, buy new furniture for her mother, a testament to her selfless nature. Betty was also deeply committed to her studies, balancing work as a clerk in the Commonwealth Department of Interior with her aspirations in psychology. Friends and family described her as hardworking and modern for her time, navigating life independently and embracing her role as a family's breadwinner. There was nothing in Betty's life to suggest she had enemies. Her death remains a baffling case of violence. It seemed random, but also deliberate. Up next, a timeline of terror. A timeline of terror. The night of September 19th began like any other. Betty attended her lecture in the city and was dropped off at a tram stop in Windsor around 9 p.m. by her lecturer. She boarded a tram to Grange and disembarked at Days Road terminus at 9:32 p.m. It's a short walk from her home. Somewhere along the shadowy path lined by begonia trees, between 9:38 p.m. and 9:53 p.m., she was ambushed. Witnesses heard her desperate screams, but no one intervened. By the time her wristwatch stopped at 9:53 p.m., Betty's life had been violently cut short. Her father reported her missing to police in the early hours of September 20th, and by 5:30 a.m., Constable Stewart discovered her lifeless body in a garden at the corner of Carberry and Thomas Streets, just 9 meters from her bedroom window. Clues and theories. Betty's injuries painted a grim picture of the attack. She'd been savagely beaten, with a fractured jaw, lacerations, and even a tooth knocked several meters away. Black boot polish marked her face and legs where she had been kicked. Her forehead bore a strange, dotted imprint, possibly from a military canvas gaiter. The Korean War was underway, and it was common to see servicemen in the streets of Brisbane. Despite the brutal assault, robbery and sexual assault were ruled out. Her jewelry remained untouched, though her handbag's contents were scattered. Only her wallet was missing. Police theorized the killer might have been interrupted, leaving a chilling question. Was Betty the intended target, or a tragic case of mistaken identity? Some authorities on the case are confident the person who killed Betty was a local, but believed it was a case of wrong place, wrong time, or mistaken identity. This was likely an ambush and a deliberate intended confrontation, but I don't believe the intended target was Betty Shanks, said some police. She was often dropped literally at her front gate by her lecturer. Reality is her killer on that night would have known that she was going to walk down Thomas Street. That fact seemed to have eluded even the most seasoned detectives. Many other theories about the murder have emerged over the years, including a rogue police officer who struck Betty with his motorcycle and a local doctor who committed suicide 2 days after the murder, sparking rumors he was connected to the crime. At the inquest, Betty's closest friend, Betty McDougall, dismissed the theories a jilted lover was responsible. He said Betty did not have a boyfriend. She was certain her friend would tell her if she was seeing someone, let alone a married man. At least 7 men declared they killed Betty, including some deathbed confessions, but all were proven false. Up next, the mystery caller and the man in the brown suit. The mystery caller and the man in the brown suit. During an inquest into the murder in February 1953, Betty's supervisor, John Ducey, said he had received a mysterious and upsetting telephone call from an unknown man on September 17th, 2 days before she was killed. She was not her normal self after he received that call, Mr. Ducey said. One of the most compelling theories is the involvement of a man in a brown suit seen pacing near the tram terminus. Witness described him as tall, well-dressed, and agitated. 47 minutes after Betty's watch stopped, a taxi driver picked up a man with blood in his face and bloody clothes about 3 kilometers from the murder scene. Police believed it was the same man in the brown suit seen the tram terminus and quickly labeled him a prime suspect. He was never identified. Some believe this man was Eric Sterry, a married former soldier with a history of violence and mental health issues. His daughter later claimed he confessed to the crime and kept the photo of Betty in a family album for decades. Yet despite these claims, no conclusive evidence has ever tied him or anyone else to the murder. A city haunted by questions. The murder of Betty Shanks transformed Brisbane, casting a long shadow over the city's sense of safety and innocence. Over the years, numerous suspects, confessions, and theories have emerged, but none have resolved the mystery. Local historian Jack Sim, who has long championed Betty's case, believes her story deserves closure. Advances in DNA technology offer a glimmer of hope, as it's believed Betty may have fought her attacker hard enough to leave traces of their genetic material behind. Betty was not just a victim, Sim said. She was a real person, beautiful soul, and a courageous fighter. As the years pass and witnesses age, time is running out for answers. Yet the memory of Betty Shanks and the search for her killer remain as vital as ever. Testament to a young woman whose life was tragically stolen and his city forever changed. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode of Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast, make sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts.